Welcome, everybody, back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at a cinema legend and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
My name is Austin Digger.
And today we begin our John Ford 5. The films we're covering are Stagecoach, The Grapes of Wrath, My Darling Clementine, The Searchers, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Some good films on there. And we're kicking this off with Stagecoach, the coming out party for, well, our coming out party with John Ford here, but also the coming out party for a man you might have heard of named John Wayne. Anybody heard of John Wayne?
Yes, Eric,
a few people,
I have.
A few people have heard of John Wayne.
Didn't know this was a response question.
Yes. So, Stagecoach is the 1939 film, I believe. The 1939 film about a group on a stagecoach going through Indian country, and it's a very dangerous road they have to take. Originally, they are transported or at least chaperoned by the United States military that gets other orders, and they have to leave them behind, taking them through Indian country. There's a lot of other caveats here, like 1, we have a pregnant woman. 2, we have a drunken doctor. 3, we have a Confederate soldier. 4, we have the John Wayne All-American Badass Boy Scout. We have who's going to prison. We have the marshal. We have the comedy relief guy driving the stagecoach. And this basically takes us on this adventure with these people inside the stagecoach for a very long time. Then we have the birth of the child, and then we have everything's going to be fine. We're going through Indian country, and then we get attacked in one of the greatest, had to have been the greatest action set piece to that time almost. In 1939, are you kidding me? It's still like heart pounding, like it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of stuff happening in this film, and it's not that long. Probably like, what is it, an hour and 45-minute runtime? It's not that bad.
I almost started watching it again because like I finished it, I loved it so much, but there's like just so many, like every character really has their own like style, like clearly idea, like backstory that I'm like, there's more to get. Like, I know that every time I watch this, I'm going to discover more about how they all just function, what they all, like... I mean, it's not like the plot's confusing. The plot's actually very straightforward. They literally have to get from A to B. But, man, it's just such a rich, amazing ensemble where... And it's funny because now that we know John Wayne is such a legendary actor, you think he would be the main character. And he's definitely up there, but it's a real proper ensemble.
It really is. And the ensemble is so rich. All these characters are so awesome, so fleshed out, and so good, to the point when you finally get them on the ropes at the end, when they're in the final chase scene, you have an opinion on every character that might live or die in the scene, which is very, very important when you're building to something like that. I forgot you have the prostitute. How can I forget the prostitute? You know, she's hugely important in this, and ends up being the love interest. So anyway, what struck me about this film that was so awesome is that this film has probably more in common with films like 12 Angry Men than it does to your typical Western, and the fact that you have these people marinating in a room together for a really long time. That stuck out with me. And the other thing that really, really hit me over the head was just how tightly edited the film was.
Oh my God.
mean, it's like... especially for the times. I mean, no scene lingers longer than it has to, and some of them linger for a long time. These are long cuts. I mean, it's 1939, but it keeps everything, the action moving at such an unbelievable pace that you don't realize that, wait, no actions really happened until the final scene. It's just been really dialogue and character-based. With all those conversations coming really fast and furious, but each of them enriching each character, and then a tight edit, a tight cut, going to something else, showing the time has passed in a very efficient way. And, you know, I'm sure this is a lot of knowledge that people probably know, but, you know, Orson Welles said that he watched this movie like 50 times before he made Citizen Kane. He specifically references Stagecoach.
He called that his film school. Basically.
Yeah.
I just watched like 100 times. I go, that's how I make a film.
Exactly. And it's funny because, you know, you watch the films and they couldn't be more dissimilar, but if they're alike in one regard, it's the editing is so cut and is cut so perfectly well that all the scenes feel like they were perfect. Like they lasted enough time, and it keeps everything fresh and keeps the characters moving, because Citizen Kane to this day is one of the best edited films of all time. So,
and also, I mean, this is where we're going to immediately get into the scope of John Ford. So that we're going to be talking about for the next 4 weeks. It's amazing that Yes, it's called Stagecoach. Yes, a ton of scenes happen within a stagecoach, and then they go to lots of different places and have lots of scenes. Not on horses. But it's a movie that could have easily felt claustrophobic or felt like it was just always in a sound studio. And it's not, because this is John Ford getting to film where he feels the most comfortable, which is out in the range.
Yeah, I mean, specifically Monument Valley.
Absolutely. That's where he filmed so many of his films, and it is so absurdly gorgeous. Even as for a black and white movie that still, even with the Criterion Collection, still looks a bit messy.
Yes.
I mean, there's no pristine version.
I read their transfer on it, like the painstaking job they had to do with this film. They're like, there's no good, like Valance said, there's no good version of Stagecoach that exists. This was taken from several copies of Stagecoach, just trying to get the best one, and then all the dirt they had to remove, and, it's an old film.
It's a very old film, and it's just kind of crazy that usually films that aren't perfectly preserved, we kind of just forget about. People, I don't know, acclaim the Erich von Steinheim silent film Greed, which famously was like a 6-hour cut the studio made into a 4-hour cut, which made into like an hour-and-a-half cut without him. And so, like, you have TCM trying to, like, recreate it with, like, stills of, like, what was done, like, in his notes. And it's fine. I watched that version. Couldn't really get emotionally swept up in it as you, like, cut to, like, pages on a notebook. But that film is now kind of getting more and more lost to time. It's like, we're not really, like, we have other complete silent film epics that we can look at. This is something that's so special that we've, like, all endured the worst VHS copies and, like, things that we can find at the library, because it is so majestic and so exciting and so fun and funny and insanely influential.
Yeah, and the characters never fall into archetypes. Like, I think that's really, really important, because what happens here is, on the surface level, you do have archetypes. You got the prostitute, you got the proper lady, you got the drunk, you got, like, you do. But then when the drunk has to sober up, because he's the only doctor and he has to deliver a baby, that means something. When the pregnant woman who's the proper gal has to, embrace and the prostitute, that means something. When the prostitute falls in love, that means something. Like,
well, I mean, John Wayne has to start caring. In general. Right?
Exactly. Because, and he's an outlaw at the beginning who becomes, like, proper hero by the end of this film. So, and even the martial change, like, there's so much, like, happening here that the characters who present, it's, just on the page, like, I would buy the trade paperback that said 6 archetypes get in a stagecoach and go through Indian country. Like, that's a cool, like, idea anyway. But the fact, so it's like, it is actually more nuanced than it really even needed to be good. It just became great.
And there's something about the stagecoach environment that's something that's completely lost in modern society, because, yes, we sit with strangers on the bus, but the bus is completely silent as we go through Chicago. We're all on a plane. Again, we're not meeting lifelong friends here. Also because that is guaranteed safety each time, right? Yes, you can get a bus accident, but the stagecoach is, we're all in this together. We're in insanely tight quarters, and it's a dangerous world out there. There's 1,000 things that can go wrong.
And we're going to be here for 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah.
Because we're going 25 miles an hour.
Right.
And
that's something that creates this, like, perfect drama.
Yeah.
And I like that it's not, like, really forced in this movie. It just really happens organically. Especially as it all kind of begins just to kind of bide the time. There are outside factors, and especially if we're going to get into the ending, that will cause them to have to, like, unite. But really, it's like, it is curiosity and, like, unsaid tension that kind of begins their conversations. You're right, and very similar to 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of. Like, these people that's, and even they kind of come in with archetypes in a lot of different ways as archetypes, and then they flush out a lot. Not every character, but some do. There's almost too many characters in there to match every archetype, and it's only one sex. So that has something to do with it, too. But, there's no damsel in distress here. There are damsels in distress that have a lot of other problems.
There are dudes in distress.
There are dudes in distress. There's a lot of that. I want to give a particular tip of the cat to Thomas Mitchell, who played Doc Boone, because I love this actor.
This guy's amazing.
I love this guy. He's in It's a Wonderful Life, most notably. I mean,
is he the drunk?
He's the drunken uncle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guy that loses the money. Well, he doesn't lose it. It's stolen by.
I forgot that was him.
Yeah, by Lionel Barrymore. But it's the same guy. It's like the same character. But that's the one thing that's really good about watching these old films, and like 12 Angry Men too, is you find these people who were character actors, and they played those one or two types of roles, and they played them like a billion times, and they were really good at that. It really doesn't exist too much anymore. It's like, if Christian Bale's going to be a supporting actor in this movie, he'll be a lead in the next one. It's like, it's not as common to see that, where it's like, this guy's going to pop up in 40 movies in his career, and he's always going to be supporting. There's no Lee J. Cobb.
It's kind of shifted. Well, I mean, I guess to me, it's kind of moved to TV.
That's probably true.
Like, there's the guy named David Costabile, who I think is the good luck charm of every good show. He was Gale in Breaking Bad. He was the editor in The Wire. He's now on Billions as Wags. He's in Damages. Like, that guy's never been the lead of a show, but he's been in 5 excellent shows.
Yeah, it speaks a lot to just the type of acting, and acting in general. Like, a TV actor is a different thing almost now than.
It's just kind of funny because
they don't really blend together. No. It's not like you're seeing Aaron Paul in the next movie nominated for Best Picture. It's not gonna happen.
They'll take the leading actors, like Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, but even him, not really. It's not like he's pumping out the movies. That's not really happening. So,
Hollywood's just so different. But this time, I mean, it is the power of the studio system, right? It is studios getting actors on contract for their studios. Mm-hmm. So it's to their benefit to have this guy, and this guy would just be John Wayne. Mm-hmm. We have him on contract. Let's come put him in the next 4 films this year, because
why not?
We have him.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, so the first shot of John Wayne in this movie is pretty famous. Mm-hmm. He fires a gun in the air, and then we zoom in on John Wayne. It's like, here's John Wayne for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
I mean, he opens up because the stagecoach is cresting a hill. He's the last one to get in the stagecoach. Mm-hmm. And you hear a gun fire, and it zooms on John Wayne standing at the top of the hill holding a gun. And it's like, okay, hello.
So I guess we're going to talk about him in a couple more movies from now. But there's always I think there's been a new question within the film community of looking back. Is John Wayne a good actor? Or is he just a good movie star? What do you think?
I think that it's Edgerrin James was a great running back when he played for the Colts. He got traded and he didn't play very good again after that. Marshall Faulk was a great running back when he played for the Colts. He was a great running back when he played for the Rams. Sometimes you fit within your system and you're great, and that's just fine. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I feel about John Wayne. John Wayne did just play the Duke. He played that character. But there's also, and he ranges from 2 different types of things. Like, he goes from the badass with the gun that kills everybody in the room. And he's going to win. He's always going to win. And then he goes from that to that sort of old boy, good old fashioned conservatism. Where, the good guy's going to win, whatever.
Especially during the war.
Especially during that. Exactly. And then, but he swings the pendulum the other way in the sense that he can also actually really deliver very, very soundly on tender, quiet moments. Mm-hmm. He's actually really good at that. He's got a very sweet face. He's got a very sweet voice, and it works.
He's rather romantic in this movie.
He is romantic in this movie, and he does that in other films as well. So he has those 2 sort of, different pendulums that he swings back and forth to, and I think that serves it. I think he can. I think he can deliver enough of a performance within there. He's definitely a much bigger movie star than he is a great actor. There's no doubt about that. But I think that's, and maybe he's the poster child for that. But to say he's not a good actor I think it's a little misguided too. I mean, as far as cowboy movies are concerned, I prefer Clint Eastwood, but I also think John Wayne's probably the better actor of the 2. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really speak to, I mean, I feel like at least when you think about characters like Clint Eastwood's, I know going off kind of a tangent here, but Clint Eastwood and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or Unforgiven, or I'm just pulling those two off, or it's still like the Blondie thing. There's not much nuance happening here, and less so than what I think John Wayne gives. So
it's interesting,
and I actually prefer Clint Eastwood. So
I think I do. I think Clint Eastwood is someone who may not have the range, but definitely puts thoughts into like, what does this character do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
John Wayne has just a really like natural way of acting.
Yeah,
he is someone. I mean, he's not like a method actor by trade, but he is just someone who he fits so comfortably in those boots. You know, like, and the fact that this was his first real role is insane because, I mean, he has to carry so much and he carries it weightlessly. And to kind of add the tension to be the one of the more mysterious guys on Stagecoach to starting a love interest to the grand finale does require a certain, caliber of actor.
Yeah, because it needs to be twofold. One, it needs to be someone who is capable of someone you want to watch fall in love on screen. And also a guy that that can save this Stagecoach when the shit goes down. Like, it needs to be twofold, like, I'm not interested in Bruce Willis falling in love on screen. I know that Bruce Willis can save me when the shit goes down, though. Like, so there are two different, you know what I mean, though? There's like there's two different things that sort of gives a little more weight, a little more meat to maybe not just this performance of John Wayne, but him by and large to the rest of his career. And I want to say his performance, and I haven't seen it in a while, in The Searchers is very nuanced.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah. So.
I'm just right now thinking about like.
And we'll get to that, but
we will. And how hard it is to do that. We, a couple days ago, not for the podcast, watched the film Warcraft. And talk about one of the most bland leading performances ever. Like, I forgot the actor's name, but the fact that he's supposed to be the heroic fantasy hero who's going to be climbing up things and fighting the orcs and such and fall in love with someone.
Nothing cares.
Nothing. Zero charisma, no confidence in him. Like, nothing. Whereas that's something that John Wayne can do. Actually, I would love to see him fight in Orc. That'd be amazing. He missed his opportunity of a new genre.
John Wayne in Warcraft would have been great.
Oh my god!
You just told the whole podcast world that we watched Warcraft together.
I want to be on the record.
It's on the record now. We watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get into a lot more later. I think that this is a great starting point because we're gonna watch sort of John Wayne arc here too. I mean, we're going to watch John Ford arc as a film. We're going to watch John Wayne because we have 3 John Wayne films on this podcast. So.
Well, we're going to take a break in the middle to do a Henry Fonda double feature.
Yeah,
and then we'll go back to John.
And then we'll go back to John Wayne and with a little Jimmy Stewart.
It's true because I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to miss something big. We only covered one proper Western on the show.
Winchester 73.
Yeah.
We talked about doing Liberty Valance on for Jimmy. Then we thought we'd probably have it for John, and then we ended up with
different John.
So anyway,
so now we have to talk about the ending.
Yeah.
Wow.
How?
Okay. So explain what happens.
Okay, so they give birth to the baby. Baby comes out. They're now crossing in the last open field section towards the final town, which they know they'll be safe in. And once they get to the town. The John Wayne character, the Ringo Kid, is going to go to jail. That was talked about earlier in the film. The marshals taking him to jail. Anyway, so they're crossing this final Great Plain. You think the push is probably going to be the last, probably 5 to 10 miles. And here comes the Indians. So we knew were coming at some point, right? So here they come, riding on horseback, and everybody needs to mount up with a gun. And because this is going to be a fight. And the action set piece takes place across this desert plain headed towards the town. It feels like you're going 100,000 miles an hour.
Oh my
while
God.
All the actors on horseback are riding in and firing, and the people on the actual stagecoach, John Wayne's character, scaling to the top of the stagecoach, firing his gun, jumping off the front of the stagecoach, landing on the horses, unstrapping the horses. You see people run over by the stagecoach in real time, people flying off their horses. This huge, crazy action event unfolds, and it sustains for 10 minutes. It goes on, and the whole time I'm thinking is, there's no CGI. There's no, you can't fake this. This is the real thing happening here, and it's crazy.
At one point, I think there was at least a dozen horses on screen, from one frame.
That's the whole thing that works so well, is because in order to add, so you have a basis for how fast this is. You're always having a middle ground, a background, a foreground being established. In the foreground, you'll have the stagecoach. In the middle ground, you'll have the horses chasing the stagecoach. And in the background, you see cliffs and rocks and stuff moving by very, very, very quickly. And this is not a soundstage, people. I mean, this is happening. So you always have this sense of how fast it's going. And of course, you have people flying off horses, people jumping on the stagecoach, people jumping off the stagecoach. It's just this crazy, crazy action sequence. And the whole time I kept thinking is, how did no one die filming this? Mm-hmm. This is insane. Particularly whoever was the stunt double or whoever it was that was jumping off the stagecoach while it's going in this speed onto the horses.
How did horses not die?
How did horses not die? They probably did. The reality is they probably did.
Probably shook that up. But I remember at one point they had just crossed a river, and once again, just things we just don't think about unless you're playing the Oregon Trail, of how difficult it is to cross a river with a stagecoach.
Yeah,
this wasn't even a very deep river, but you're watching these 4 horses pretty much go up to their necks to cross the river.
There's no
guys are throwing
faking
rocks at them too.
There's no faking this.
No, this is not. There's no wire set up making them all stay afloat as they wade across.
Well, and that type of truthfulness is what makes, I think, the movie feel so timeless. Real and good and timeless, right? I mean, the fact that they actually shot these things like they were actually done, that's pretty cool. I mean...
And we talk about influences. I mean, obviously this has influence on whole number of directors, but definitely Kurosawa, right?
Oh, well, yeah. When we talked... I think I talked about it a little bit last week on the wrap-up for Spike Lee, how, John Ford... with his westerns, inspires Kurosawa with his samurai films. Kurosawa then in turn inspires all the westerns that come after him.
Well, that's a bit of the wrong order. It's actually Dashiell Hammett's crime novel that inspires Yojimbo, which inspires Fistful of Dollars.
Well, if you're just talking about Yojimbo.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it was Red Harvest turns into Yojimbo turns into this.
Yeah, but Seven Samurai was before Yojimbo, and that inspired Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
So
there is a cycle of definitely Kurosawa being influenced, especially by people like John Ford and probably a little bit Howard Hawks.
Well, in particular Ford. I mean, Kurosawa wasn't shy about talking about that. I mean, John Ford was his biggest inspiration. I mean, yes, if you're referring specifically to Yojimbo, that's a little different too, because that goes into the hands of a spaghetti western. Right. And then you kind of get into that, and that's influencing Sergio Leone. Mm-hmm. But in terms of movies like The Searchers inspiring stuff, well, The Searchers was after Seven Samurai, but, Stagecoach inspiring that too. I mean,
Tarantino just basically did his attempt at Stagecoach with The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
First act of which takes place on a stagecoach. Definitely has filming elements that remind people of that. But then he doesn't do the rest of Stagecoach.
And just, nice. And then also, I think, adding nuance and flavor to the samurais, just like John Ford does it with the cowboys, right? So, Kurosawa was not able to do that with his women almost exclusively, never. I mean, that's the big problem with Kurosawa people have is, his women are pretty weak, and I think Ford's are pretty good. So,
and it's funny also, Spielberg definitely heavily influenced by John Ford, not only for the film War Horse, which he said, this is my John Ford film, and filmed it as such, but when I was looking at how just easily it was for me to jump in with these characters in Stagecoach, I thought of Jurassic Park. Yes, those are all archetypes adjacent, but by the middle of the film, you kind of get Ian Malcolm's mindset, you get Hammond's mindset. Just a very simple yes, we're always in an adventure story. We're serving the adventure. But at least you have a cast of characters you care about that aren't just going to be fodder for dying at the end.
Inspired, like, really weird things, like Back to the Future 3.
It's true. Which was also shot in Monument Valley.
It was also, well, so was the opening to The Last Crusade.
And Season 6 opening of Doctor Who. What if it was a game where I mentioned Doctor Who every single episode of the show?
You have to somehow
got like 111.
And I have to fit in how I don't like Crash and or Birdman. That was me fitting them in because they're bad. Anyway, I don't know how much we talked about Stagecoach in this film, or in this podcast, but it is a really, really, really good movie.
It's utterly outstanding.
Yeah.
I mean,
it inspired Citizen Kane. Like, not inspired, but inspired the filmmaker.
It taught Citizen Kane.
It taught Citizen Kane. I mean, just think about that.
Socrates did Plato.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Watch it. It's awesome. We're just going to keep seeing more impressive. Like, this could have been like your only film, and you could have retired on this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we're about to watch John Ford get all the elements that work in this. He's going to focus even more on like specific ones and make even more impressive technical achievements, I think, coming up.
I hope so.
We'll find out together. So, thank you all for listening. Like I mentioned, Stagecoach is available right now on Filmstruck. If you've not seen it, you will be blown away, and it's so much fun. Until then, you can catch us in a number of different places. We're on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. That's the same Twitter account for all the podcasts on theartimmortal.com, including The Immortals, which this week reviewed the very silly comedy The Jerk, starring Steve Martin, and the British quiz show QI, which is a lot of fun. Also, we have Ad Absurdum, a podcast where two lawyers talk about the real-life legal implications of pop culture. And they cover Jurassic Park, as we mentioned to them. Listen to why you should really look what you sign before going into a super deadly zoo. But what's good for you?
Constant Diversion's my YouTube channel.
Do you have any westerns on there?
You know, a lot of the scenes in Stagecoach are very similar to a lot of the scenes in Uncharted.
Aha, that's true.
I mean, you know, John Ford inspired a lot of media.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about that.
All special thanks to Adam Lord for the music in all of our episodes. We'll be back next Friday with John Ford's adaptation of the novel The Grapes of Wrath. Until then, I'm Austin Digger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone. Be me.
You're the notorious Ringo Kid.
My friends just call me Ringo. Nickname I had as a kid. Right name's Henry.
Seems to me I knew your family, Henry. Didn't I fix your arm once when you bucked off a horse?
Are you Doc Boone?
I certainly am. Now, let's see. I'd just been honorably discharged from the Union Army after the War of the Rebellion.
You mean the war for the Southern Confederacy, sir?
I mean nothing of the kind, sir.
That was my kid brother broke his arm. You did a good job, Doc, even if you was drunk.
Thank you, son. Professional compliments are always pleasing.
Yes, they are.
What happened to that boy whose arm I fixed?
He was murdered.